Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining. So we'd like to seek the blessings of Radha Shyamsundar, Radha Madhav, Radha Damodar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Gaunita, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and assembled devotees. So today is a disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada. According to the Western calendar, it was the 14th of November, but according to the Bharatiya, or according to the moon, because we follow the moon, the lunar calendar, his disappearance is today. So I wanted to have a quick look at his life and times. He was born on 1st of September 1896, and that was the day after Janmashtami. Janmashtami, of course, is the appearance day of Sri Krishna. And the day after Janmashtami is Nanda Utsav. So he was born on that auspicious day. In Kolkata, and his father's name, Gaur Mohande, mother's name, Rajani, and they called him Abhay Charan, which means one who is fearless, having taken shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And at the time of his birth, an astrologer revealed that this child, when he reaches the age of 70, he will cross the ocean and become a great teacher of religion and establish 108 temples. So, and amazingly, that's exactly what happened. So he set out to go to America in 1965. He was 69 years old. He had his 70th birthday on the ship, going to New York. And of course, over the next few years, 12 years, 12 years, he traveled around the world many times, and 14 times, in fact, and established more than 100 temples of Krishna, and initiated some 10,000 devotees into Krishna consciousness. Of course, his impact is still there now because of his Bhaktivedanta purports. He translated Bhagavad Gita into English, and also the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, many other books. And these books are still being spread far and wide, and many devotees, many people are becoming devotees of Krishna. So his impact is there far after he was leaving this planet. And I think it will be the 45th anniversary of his passing away today rather. So from a young age, his father actually trained him to become a devotee. He would speak of his childhood with great fondness. Some of the recollections are as follows. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord. When I was 4 or 5 years old, he gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister. And I used to imitate the performances of neighboring temple of Radha Govind. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. I remember when I was only 1 year old, there was a great Sankirtan in our house, and I also joined the dancing party. I was seeing up to their knees, very small, so I remember those days. In Calcutta, there was a very virulent type of plague epidemic in 1898, so 2 years after Prabhupada was born. So Calcutta became devastated. All people practically left Kolkata. Daily hundreds and hundreds of people were dying. I was 1 year old or 1.5 years old. So one Babaji, he organized Sankirtan, the Hare Krishna, chanting of the Hare Krishna holy names all over Calcutta. And in the Sankirtan, all people, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Parsi, everybody joined. And they were going road to road, street to street, entering in every house. So the plague subsided. This is a fact. Everyone who knows history of Calcutta knows the plague was subsided by the Sankirtan movement. In my childhood, when I was 1.5 years old, I suffered from typhoid. and Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose said, please give him chicken soup, chicken juice. My father refused. No, no, we can't. No, the doctor said, he has to be given. He has become very weak. Father said, no, I cannot allow. The doctor said, don't mind. I will prepare in my own house and send. You simply give. So it was sent from the doctor's house, and when they gave it to him, Baichan, immediately he vomited it out, and his father threw it away. When the doctor asked that, do you want more? Then Abhay's father said, no, don't bother. My father's income was almost 300 rupees. So we were not very rich men, but we had no want. Father was maintaining his family, getting children married, distributing the wealth. Everything was very nice. And we never felt any want. In the mango season, because Father saw to it that there must be a full basket of mangoes daily for the children. So we were jumping, playing, and eating mangoes. When I was 6 years old, my father gave me a Rath and encouraged to observe functions such as Rath Yatra and Dol Yatra ceremonies. I was performing the Rath Yatra in my neighborhood. He used to spend money liberally for distributing prasad to us children and our friends. I received this training from the very birth. Somehow or other, I had this spark of Krishna consciousness. My father detected it. So there you go. He's performing Rath Yatra from a very young age. And of course, he's brought it all over the world now. Practically every country has Rath Yatra. My father, he took care of me in such a way that I became perfectly Krishna conscious. He taught me how to play the Madanga drum. My mother was against. There were two teachers, one for teaching ABCD and one for teaching me Madanga. The first one was waiting and the other teacher was teaching me how to play Madanga. My mother would be dissatisfied. She was angry. What is this nonsense? You are teaching Madanga. What will he do with this Madanga? But my father would say, no, he must learn a little Madanga. My father used to receive many saintly persons at our home. And to every one of them, he used to say, kindly bless my son, so that he may become a servant of Radharani, Lord Krishna's eternal consort. This was his only ambition. He wanted me to be a preacher of Bhagavad, Srimad Bhagavatam, and player of Madanga, to become a servant of Radharani. Every parent should think like that. Otherwise, one should not become mother and father. If due to past pious activities, one gets a good father and mother, that is a great chance for advancing in Krishna consciousness. I am very much indebted to my father. I have dedicated my book, Krishna book, to him. So Prabhupada became a student of philosophy at the Scottish Churches College in 1916. It was a very prestigious college. In 1918, when he was in the third year of his college, his father, Gaur Mohan Dey, got him married to Radharani Dutt. In 1920, Mahatma Gandhi announced the non-cooperation movement in order to fight against the British through non-violent means. The call was to give up English education, English courts, English manufactured goods. Many people accepted this call and joined the movement. Influential leaders surrendered their honorary posts and titles. Motilal Nehru, Rajendra Prasad, Sia Das, Vallabhbhai Patel, and Raj Gopal Chari were some of them. Motilal Nehru, the father of Jawaharlal Nehru, was a very rich lawyer earning $500 every day. Mr. Sia Das, another lawyer, was earning $50,000 every month. They renounced everything, joined Gandhi's movement. Gandhiji's appeal to his countrymen to reject all foreign cloth and wear only khadi, produced from India's own cottage industry. He organized public meetings and asked people to come forth and reject the imported cloth. On the spot, people would throw down heaps of foreign cloth and set them ablaze in great bonfire. Students came out of government educational institutions. And Abhay Chan was one of the students who gave up his English education and joined Gandhi's movement. He started wearing khadi. But in 1922, so 4 years later, Abhay Chan met his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. This changed the course of his life. So before meeting him, he was a little apprehensive of saintly persons because they weren't very saintly. So one time, a close friend of Prabhupada, Narendranath Mulik, insisted he come and meet a sadhu from Mayapur. Initially, Prabhupada was very reluctant to go. There were many bogus sadhus, and Srila Prabhupada had very bad experience with them. But his friend insisted. Together they entered the ashram, where, sitting with his back very straight, they found Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, a studious-looking man, wearing sannyas robes and small round spectacles. Srila Prabhupada and his friend both bowed down on the floor before him. While the two young men were still rising and preparing to sit, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur immediately said to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach the message of Krishna all over the world?" First instruction, and that's what Prabhupada did. But now he challenged him actually. Prabhupada could hardly believe what he had heard. They had not even exchanged any words, yet the sadhu was telling them what they should do. He asked Bhaktisiddhanta, "Who will hear your message? As long as we are a dependent country." This is like the Gandhi philosophy, right? Get British out. First, India must become independent. How can we spread our Indian culture if we are under British rule? But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had an amazing answer. He replied in a quiet, deep voice, "The message of Krishna cannot wait for a change in Indian politics. It is not dependent on who ruled. The teachings of Bhagavad Gita are so important, so exclusively important, it cannot wait." So this is really fantastic. Walking away from the ashram, Narendranath asked Abhay, "What is your impression? What do you think of the sadhu?" Srila Prabhupada replied, "The message of Bhagavad Gita is in the hands of a very expert person." So Prabhupada accepted actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami as his spiritual master immediately, within his heart. But he didn't take Diksha until 11 years later, in 1933, in Prayag. After taking initiation, Srila Prabhupada was contributing to his spiritual master's mission by donating money as he was doing earlier. But now he wanted to do more to please his spiritual master. He could not give up family commitment and take sannyas. So he was a grihastha, he was a householder, he had family, he had children, he had a wife, he had a business. He wrote to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in December 36, humbly asking if he could offer some more direct service. He received a reply on December 31st, 1936. And of course, by that time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had already left the planet. But the letter, to his astonishment, reiterated the same order he had been given in 1922, when he had first met his spiritual master. "You try to preach whatever you have learned from me to the English-speaking people of the world. That will be good for you and for the people to whom you preach. This is my instruction to you." Srila Prabhupada took this as his final order from the spiritual master. He decided to make his life's mission. In between 1933 and 1936, so about 3 years, he met Bhaktisiddhanta maybe a couple of times, once in Radhakund, and instructions were given to Prabhupada were very simple. If you ever get money, print books. And Prabhupada actually stuck to that principle. In the years that followed, Prabhupada wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, continued assisting Gaudiya Math in its work. And in 1944, he started Back to Godhead magazine. which to this very day is still going. So this magazine was dedicated to persuading the general public that material life was not the only reality. They should be preparing themselves for the real goal of life, which was to return to the spiritual world and rejoin their original loving father, Sri Krishna. Maintaining the publication was a great struggle. Single-handedly, Prabhupada wrote the material, edited it, typed the manuscripts, checked the proofs, and even distributed the individual copies. In 1944, during Second World War, there was an acute shortage of paper, and the government of India refused to sanction paper for printing Back to God magazine. Prabhupada wrote to the government 3 times asking permission for the continuation of publication of the magazine, and the 3rd attempt was successful. Government sanctioned papers for publishing Back to God. It was not an easy task, but Srila Prabhupada persevered. He set up an organization in Jhansi, the League of Devotees, but due to the political situation at that time and people were not so interested in spiritual life, it didn't succeed. Even his wife and other family members had little or no interest in the mission. And Prabhupada, he would spend more and more time away from home, trying to conduct his spiritual duties, preaching duties. One night in mid-40s, Abhay had an unusual dream. Prabhupada appeared before him, beckoning. He was asking Abhay to leave home, take sannyas. Prabhupada woke in an intensely emotional state. How horrible, he thought. He knew it was not an ordinary dream, yet this request seemed so difficult and unlikely. Take sannyas. At least it was not something he could do immediately. Now he had to improve the business. And with the profits, he could print books. He went on with his duties, but remained shaken by the dream. Then he had a second dream, same thing again. His spiritual master coming and asking him to take sannyas. But he was a householder. To take sannyas meant to give up everything. He had to earn money. He had 5 children. He had a lot to do. And he said himself, I started a big factory in Lucknow. There were golden days. My business was flourishing like anything. But then gradually everything dwindled. With the help of some acquaintances in Allahabad, he opened a small factory there in the same city where his Prayag pharmacy had failed 15 years before. He moved to Allahabad with his son, Vrindavan, continued manufacturing medicines, while the rest of the family remained at Banaji Lane in Calcutta. He continued his traveling, but he was often away for months at a time. Eventually, he had to close his factory in Lucknow, and he had fallen behind in his employee's salary. And in 1946, he had been paying past rent in installments. But when the sales dropped, he had to give everything up. He lost everything. So he decided to retire from family life, moved to Vrindavan, where Krishna plays his childhood pastimes. He lived in a humble and austere way in the historic medieval temple of Radha Damodar. He had no income. He ate very little. He had torn clothes. He spent years in deep study and meditation. He did not care for his own comforts. He collected money, but to print books. Again, he had another dream. And this time, it was the tall, scholarly sannyasi coming directly from the spiritual world, from Krishna's personal entourage. He called to Abhay, indicating that he should follow. Repeatedly, he called in motion. He was asking Abhay to take sannyas. Come, he urged, become a sannyas. So Abhay wondered why his spiritual master would ask him to accept it. He reasoned that the spiritual master was saying, now take sannyas, you will be actually able to accomplish this mission. Formerly, the time was not right. So in 1959, he took sannyas. In the morning of 17th of September 1959, in the Keshavji Mandir, or Mat, a group of devotees sat before the deities of Radha Krishna in Lord Chaitanya. And together with Sanatan, who was a 90-year-old man, they received sannyas from Keshav Maharaj. And to everybody's surprise, Keshav Maharaj asked Babai to speak, and he spoke in English. That was his future. So he spoke in English. Nobody could understand it except him. After Abhai's speech, Keshav Maharaj awarded sannyas, saying that Abhai would now be known as Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, that Sanatan would be known as Muni Maharaj. And this is them together. This is Muni Maharaj, this is Bhakti Vedanta Swami. Keshav Maharaj is the sannyas guru. He's a disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta. And there was an account written of this in their local spiritual paper, the Gaudiya Pratika. Seeing his enthusiastic ability to write articles in Hindi, English, and Bengali, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj gave him the instruction to take Tridandi sannyas. For nearly 1 year, he had been ready to accept sannyas. In the month of Bhadra, on the day on which Vishwarup accepted sannyas, Bhakti Vedanta Swami at the Sri Keshav Ji Gaudiya Math accepted sannyas from the founder of the Vedanta Samhiti, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. Seeing him accept his ashram of renunciation, seeing this pastime of accepting we have attained great affection and enthusiasm. There you go. This is Vishwarup taking sannyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's older brother. Then a year later, he started his work on the Srimad Bhagavatam. He also wrote a book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. And he formulated a plan to go to the States. So this was quite an achievement because he had nothing. He only had 2 suitcases of books to take with him and maybe a small suitcase of clothes and cereal. But he somehow secured a ticket on a steamship called the Jaladut. And that was from the owner of that steamship company. I've forgotten her name now. But he petitioned her many times. And finally, she allowed him to board this boat. It's like a cargo ship to go to India, to go to the US. But before going, just maybe a few days before, he visited the Shantipur temple in Bengal. This is Advaitacharya's. So many years back, he used to visit this temple. And now he came back again. And the pujari there recognized him and he asked him, "Who are you? We haven't seen you for a while." And he said, "My name is Abhay Charanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami. I am a disciple of the empowered soul, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. I've been coming here because my Gurudev has given me an impossible mission to perform. He's ordered me to take the message of Chaitanya and the holy name of Krishna across the ocean to spread all over the world. I have no qualification, no ability. People in the Western world have never heard the name of Krishna or who is Radharani. How to convince them? Therefore, all these years I've been coming here because this is the place that Advaita, Chaitanya and Nityananda, are eternally present. They are planning to take the holy names all over the world. I have been coming here praying to them to empower me to fulfill my Guru's order. Tomorrow, I am taking a cargo ship to New York City, but I don't know what I will find there. I don't know how I will do it. So I'm crying to my Gurudev and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead to empower me." So later, this pujari in Shantipur saw many Westerners coming in dhoti kurta. One of them gave him a Back to Godhead magazine. He noticed the picture of Prabhupada and realized that this was the same holy man who had come and was crying for the mercy of the Lord. The pujari was ecstatic in the knowledge that the sadhu was successful in his mission. And he came to Mayapur one time and he told the devotees of this glorious pastime. So this is one of the most incredible things. In New York, Prabhupada knew no one He spent 40 odd days on this cargo ship. He had 2 heart attacks on the way. The Atlantic was not as rough as it normally is. And Prabhupada said, yes, as Krishna saved my life. The captain was a very nice man. And Prabhupada actually distributed Bhagavatam to him on the ship. Anyway, eventually Prabhupada reached New York. He was meant to go to Boston, and he didn't know anybody there, except there was a contact in Mathura he knew who had a son in Boston or something like that. So this man, he sent a ticket for Prabhupada to go from New York to his house in Boston. And he stayed there for a month or two. And then eventually he moved to New York City. And he moved to a place where here he is, Gopal Agarwal was the person. And the place he was going to go was Pennsylvania, Butler, that's right. And this is the old man, this is the man that Prabhupada visited stayed with in his early days in the States. And this is his son, Bridge. So, and this is the ship, Jaladuta. This is his passport. He looks serious in this picture. One devotee asked him, why do you look so sad in this picture? He said, sad? I wasn't sad. This was the most ecstatic moment in my life. So then in New York, he moved there in 1965, and it was really tough for first year. He had to really struggle. He bought a reel-to-reel tape recorder, which he used to record his lectures and his book, his purports. Many things were stolen from him. He had to move very quickly when one of the roommates he was sharing with, who was an American boy who was on drugs, got crazy. And he ran from that place. He had nowhere to go. He didn't know whether to turn left or right. But somehow or other, Krishna sent him some help, and he formed the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And they started to do some kirtan in a park, and they rented a place, 26 2nd Avenue. And eventually, people started to come, mainly hippies, who were already fed up with material life. They started to come, and they took interest. Prabhupada was so personable. It was so amazing as a representative of the Supreme Lord that he inspired many, many people to take initiation, to go to different cities, to start centers. From New York, they went to San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Buffalo, so many, all over the country, Montreal. And then in time, his disciples also came to London, 3 couples, and they met the Beatles, and they became very famous, actually. Especially when they met with George Harrison, who was already somewhat interested in the Mahamantra. And George Harrison also very kindly donated this Bhaktivedanta manor to the Hare Krishnas. So in that sense, it was a fantastic, Krishna really ignited this Hare Krishna movement throughout the world. So he established 108 temples with the help of his disciples, and also many Vedic projects, schools, gurukuls, goshalas, farming communities. He also established the Vedanta Institute, made up of scientists or those who had studied PhDs, in order to counteract the Western philosophy of the Big Bang, life comes from matter. And of course, he wrote hundreds of books, scores of books. And these books, they're still extremely potent. Because as he was saying, he didn't write them, Krishna wrote them. Who reads their own books? Nobody. But Prabhupada used to read Krishna book and Bhagavatam because they were written actually by Krishna. And he inspired thousands of devotees. And he still does. Even today, he still inspires. And whenever he traveled, he never suffered from jet lag. As soon as he landed, he just carried on with his normal schedule. And the devotees would struggle to keep up with him. And he was not young, in his 70s, later on in his 80s. He would travel from continent to continent, country to country, city to city, town to town, preaching the message of Krishna. He arranged for massive food distribution programs, millions of free plates of vegetarian foodstuffs, spiritualized by offering to Krishna, to be distributed to needy people across the world. So this was really empowered by the Supreme Lord. Impossible that anybody could achieve such a task at a ripe old age. Normally, at the age of 70, you would retire. You would stop what you would normally be doing and stay in one place. And he was in the best possible place, the Radha Damodar temple, which is considered to be the hub of the spiritual world. Yet he gave that up to go to the West. So sometimes the devotee gives up Krishna to spread his message. Just like Mother Yashoda gave up Krishna, feeding him to save the milk. Because the milk is also for Krishna. So the spreading of the message is also for Krishna. So the devotee sometimes does something very hard for the sake of Krishna. And Krishna becomes very pleased with that. Of course, as little Krishna, he became a bit upset with Mother Yashoda. But that was to perform this Leela, which had never been seen before, to enhance the joy of the devotees and Mother Yashoda especially. So Srila Prabhupada fulfilled the prophecy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the holy names of Krishna will be chanted in every town and village. So all over the world, the words Hare Krishna, Hare Rama have been heard on the streets, festivals, on the radio, on television. Holy names have gone to every town and village. It was Srila Prabhupada's faith and devotion that brought about this colossal transformation. And this is quite a tough picture to look at, but right till the end, Prabhupada, he dictated his Bhaktivedanta purports. He never stopped. And the last 6 months or so, he hardly ate anything. He became pretty much skin and bones from the material point of view. But his consciousness was completely Krishna conscious. This is why he is regarded to be one of the greatest servants of the Supreme Lord. Right till the end, he never stopped. He's Krishna conscious. It was a great example. Great, great, great example. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So any questions, any comments? That was quite a quick run through Srila Prabhupada's little idea of his life and times. Anybody like to share anything? Okay.
Definitely, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, anyway.
Definitely was an empowered soul, wasn't he? Nobody can do what he did at the age of 69.
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. And not suffering from any jet lag. I mean, this is just out of this world. And people had to keep, his followers had to keep up with him, the way that he was walking, Oh my goodness, this is.
And who?
I wonder what he was. I mean, his previous lives, if we know anything about it.
No, I don't think there's anything that's really any indication of that, except that he's from the spiritual world. Whether he's a Manjari or a Gopa, he never gave any hint of his situation. But we know in this line of gurus, mainly they're Manjaris.
Yeah.
So we can only sort of speculate that he's in that sort of swaroop, of Manjari. But he never gave any indication. He said that's not important, and it's not important. What is important is, what are we doing to become God conscious? How are we spreading that knowledge to others? If we have the knowledge, how are we spreading it? And that's what really counts. Whether we are this or that, that's by the by. We just want to please Krishna, and that's the main important thing. How do we please him? By sharing this knowledge with others. But yeah, about the jet lag, he used to travel with those who were like 20, 25, like Shrutakirti. He said in a lecture that, Prabhupada would land in a place and he would just, start whatever time it was, he would just continue with his normal routine. And he would say, Shrutakirti would say, I would be completely shattered. We struggle with jet lag. I'll be trying to go to have some rest, but Prabhupada was no need of any rest.
Did he travel to Australia?
Yeah, a few times, I think. At least 2 times, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite far from India, isn't it?
Indeed. It's pretty far. Yeah, he went around the world at least 14 times. So he's been there at least twice, at least minimum twice. But he went to pretty much everybody would invite him. All the devotees, they would go to different countries, and as soon as they set up a center, they would write to Prabhupada, please come. And he would never disappoint. This is the thing, the guru, the disciple, just the spiritual master, is a little bit like Krishna, is that he will fulfill the desires of his devotees. So Krishna fulfills the desire of devotees. The spiritual master does the same. You invite him, he will come. Guru Maharaj was the same. You invite him, and he wouldn't say no. Yes, I'll come. He wouldn't be in great health, but it doesn't matter. I'll come. So these are the great souls, great souls.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Naniman. Thank you for that feedback. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.